When the FBI finally raided Marcus's penthouse at 6 a.m., I wasn't there to see him cry. I was 3,000 miles away, sitting in a quiet Zurich cafe, staring at a check that would redefine my net worth. They thought firing me would bury their dirty secrets. They thought stripping my equity would leave me destitute. They forgot one critical detail. I wasn't just his fiancée, I was his chief financial officer. And in the brutal world of high finance, you don't need a gun to destroy a man. You just need a forensic audit. Marcus called me paranoid when I questioned the offshore shell companies. He called me crazy when he canceled our wedding via text. But the IRS? They don't have feelings. They have Section 7623B of the Internal Revenue Code, the law that legally pays a whistleblower up to 30% of the recovered taxes if the fraud exceeds $2 million. I didn't get mad. I got organized. I watched his empire crumble in 4K resolution from my laptop screen. His 100-foot yacht in Miami, seized by the marshals. His hidden crypto wallets in the Cayman Islands, decrypted and drained, and his reputation obliterated faster than a penny stock in a market crash. This isn't a story about a breakup. This is a masterclass in financial warfare. If you're being gaslit, cheated, or robbed by someone powerful, stop crying. Start documenting, because I'm about to show you exactly how to file the paperwork that turns their greed into your bank balance. Revenge is a dish best served with a tax-deductible receipt. My name is Elena, and 6 months ago, I was the one being escorted out of the building by security. Let's rewind to the moment I realized the man I loved was actually a monster in a 3-piece suit. 6 months ago, my life was perfect, or so the balance sheet said. I had just closed a merger worth $200 million for Sterling Corp. Marcus, the CEO, and I were 2 weeks away from our wedding. We were the power couple. But on Monday morning, I walked into the office and found my access card. Didn't work. The red light blinked like a warning I should have seen coming. Before I could knock, security guards surrounded me. Not just any guards, private contractors, armed. Marcus walked out. He didn't look at me. He handed me a folder. Termination for cause, he said. Embezzlement. The word hung in the air like toxic smoke. I felt the blood drain from my face. Embezzlement? I was the one who fixed their messy ledgers. I was the one who saved them from the SEC. Sign this NDA, his lawyer whispered. Admit to the error and we won't prosecute. It was a setup. They needed a scapegoat for the missing funds I had started to question. I refused to sign, so they escalated the protocol. Escort her out, Marcus ordered. The walk of shame through the trading floor was excruciating. Every eye was on me. My personal effects were dumped into a cardboard box. Photos, awards, my life. Security marched me to the curb like a common criminal. And of course, it started to rain. I hailed a cab to go home, to our penthouse, but the nightmare was just beginning. The doorman, Henry, whom I'd tipped every Christmas for 5 years, wouldn't open the gate. Mr. Sterling said you're no longer a resident, Miss Elena. He changed the locks an hour ago. It wasn't just an eviction. It was a strategic strike. The apartment was under the company's name. I checked my phone. 3 notifications from my bank. Account frozen. Marcus had triggered a fraud alert on our joint accounts. He cut my liquidity to 0. No home, no job, no money, and a fiancé who was actively framing me for a federal crime. I spent that night in a cheap motel in Queens, paying with the cash I found in my purse. The room smelled of stale cigarettes and despair. I sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. I wanted to cry, I wanted to scream, but tears don't pay legal fees. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. It's just business, Elena. Don't fight it. That text was his mistake. It wasn't business, it was war. He thought he had taken everything. But he forgot about the shadow drive. As a CFO, I was paranoid. I backed up every server log, every wire transfer, every email, not on the company cloud, but on a private encrypted server in Switzerland. I plugged the drive into my laptop. The screen glowed blue in the dark room. Access granted. The files were all there. The Cayman Project. I saw the transactions. $40 million siphoned out over 2 years. Fake vendor invoices, consulting fees to shell companies, all authorized by Marcus. He was buying properties in Miami. He was funding a gambling habit in Macau. And he was planning to let the company implode, leaving the shareholders with nothing. I wasn't just looking at fraud. I was looking at my retirement fund. Stolen. Panic turned into calculation. Fear turned into a strategy. I knew I couldn't go to the police yet. They would bury the evidence. I needed the feds. But first, I needed to survive the next 30 days. And for that, I had to play dead. I stopped answering calls. I let the rumors spread that I had a breakdown. Let them think they won. Let them get comfortable. Let them get careless. While they were popping champagne, I was formatting a 500-page affidavit for the Department of Justice. My weapon wasn't a sword. It was the Internal Revenue Code, Title 26, and it cuts deeper than any knife. But to make the trap perfect, I needed him to make one last transaction, the fatal error. I sent him one final email, a fake apology. "I'm sorry, Marcus. I'll sign the NDA." He took the bait. He thought the threat was gone, so he moved the rest of the money. That transfer was the final nail in his coffin. And I held the hammer. I walked out of that building without signing. They thought I was broken, but a good CFO never leaves without a backup. Rule number 1 of risk management. Every night for 3 years, I had synced the company's raw data to a private encrypted cloud server. For disaster recovery, I told them. Well, the disaster had arrived. I wasn't just unemployed, I was a walking library of their financial crimes. But I couldn't just leak it to the press. That's amateur. I needed a surgical strike. To destroy Marcus, I needed to understand the shell game, the layering of funds. He was moving money through 3 subsidiaries, Alpha, Beta, and Omega. I spent 2 weeks tracing the IP addresses of the wire transfers. Digital footprints never lie. They weren't paying vendors. They were buying real estate. Money under his mother's name. This is where most people hire a lawyer. Lawyers are expensive and slow. I decided to hire the United States government, specifically the IRS meet IRS Form 211, the application for award for original information. It's the deadliest weapon in America. Better than a subpoena, but filling it out isn't enough. You need proof, irrefutable proof. I started with the ghost employees. Standard embezzlement tactic 101. Marcus had 20 people on payroll who didn't exist. Their salaries went to one account. I cross-referenced their social security numbers. They belonged to deceased people. That's not just tax fraud. That's identity theft. That's federal prison time. Then I looked at the consulting fees. $50,000 a month to a firm in Nevada. I used Google Earth to check the address. It wasn't an office. It was a mailbox store next to a laundromat. Classic money laundering. While I was eating instant noodles in a motel, Marcus was eating caviar on my dime. The anger didn't fade. It crystallized into a plan, a forensic audit plan. I needed to prove scienter, intent, proving he knew what he was doing. I found his emails to the accountant. "Make the loss disappear," he wrote. That email was the smoking gun. It pierced the corporate veil. Now, the math. The IRS pays 15 to 30% of proceeds collected. Total tax evaded, $14 million. Penalties and interest, another $10 million. My potential share, anywhere from $3 to $7 million. Taxable, of course. But this wasn't just about the money. It was about the qui tam provision, suing on behalf of the government, becoming an extension of the law. I spent the next week compiling the submission package. It had to be perfect. One typo, one missing form, and the IRS would toss it in the shredder. I included the wire logs, the fake invoices, and the ghost employee list. I also included a timeline of his asset purchases. The yacht, the cars, the jewelry. This is called net worth method. proving his spending exceeded his reported income. It's how they caught Al Capone, and it's how they would catch Marcus. By day 29, the package was ready. 5 pounds of paper, 5 pounds of dynamite. I walked to the post office in a hoodie and sunglasses. Paranoia is a survival skill. I sent it, certified mail, return receipt requested. Always get a receipt. As the box disappeared down the chute, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The fuse was lit. Now I just had to wait for the explosion. I checked my bank account. $400 left. Enough for 2 more weeks at the motel. I needed a job while the IRS did their work, but no one hires a fired CFO. Marcus had blacklisted me. He called every recruiter in the city, so I took a job as a night shift bookkeeper for a diner. Cash only, from closing multi-million-dollar deals to counting tip jars. It was humbling, but it gave me time, and it gave me cover. No one looks for a whistleblower in a diner. 2 months passed. I watched the news every day, waiting for the headline. Then I got a letter. Not an email, a physical letter on Department of Justice stationery. My hands shook as I opened it. Case number 24-909, investigation initiated. They had assigned a special agent. They wanted a meeting. The trap was set. The hunters were deployed, and Marcus was the prey. I submitted the package anonymously. 5,000 pages of evidence, wire logs, fake invoices, and the smoking gun, his double ledger. Then I waited. Silence is the loudest sound in the world when you're hunting. Marcus was celebrating. He announced record profits. Stock prices soared to an all-time high. He felt untouchable. He even sent me a cease and desist letter, demanding I return my engagement ring. I sent it back, via FedEx, insured. 3 months later, on a Tuesday, the first domino fell. The bank froze the company's credit line. Suspicious activity, they called it. It wasn't a glitch. It was a suspicious activity report filed by the bank. Marcus panicked. Without credit, payroll would bounce in 48 hours. He tried to move the offshore money back to cover the liquidity crisis. That was the mistake. That was the trap I had set. Where the moment he touched those offshore accounts, he confirmed intent. You can argue accounting errors. You cannot argue wire fraud when you move hidden assets. The forensic accountants were watching the accounts in real time. They saw the ping from the Cayman Islands. They saw the destination, New York, 6 a.m. The execution began. FBI, IRS, criminal investigation, and the U.S. Marshals. They didn't knock politely, they breached. Marcus was still in his silk pajamas, holding his encrypted phone. "Federal warrant," an agent shouted. "Drop the device." They seized everything: laptops, tablets, hard drives, and the servers. The physical servers where the double ledger lived. I watched it on the morning news from the diner. CEO arrested in $40 million fraud scheme. The stock plummeted 80% in pre-market trading. But the shareholders were wiping him out. But the best part wasn't the arrest. It was the asset forfeiture. Under federal law, assets purchased with proceeds of crime are subject to seizure. The penthouse, seized. The yacht, seized. The art collection, gone. Marcus didn't just lose his freedom, he lost his leverage. His high-priced lawyers demanded bail. The judge said, "Flight risk." Denied. He was remanded to MDC Brooklyn. It's not a country club. While he was trading cigarettes, I was meeting with the DOJ. I had to testify before a grand jury. It took 3 days. I walked them through every spreadsheet, every hidden transaction. The prosecutor called me a star witness. Marcus's lawyer called me a disgruntled ex. But numbers don't have emotions, and the numbers said guilty. He eventually took a plea deal. 8 years in federal prison, plus full restitution, meaning he has to pay back every stolen dollar. But since he was bankrupt, the government liquidated his estate. And that brings us back to the check, the Whistleblower Award. The government collected $14 million in recovered taxes. My share was 30%. It took 2 years for the check to arrive. Bureaucracy is slow, but it pays. I didn't buy a yacht. I didn't buy a penthouse. I bought my freedom. Marcus lost everything trying to be a king. I won by being an accountant. It happened on a Tuesday. Civil asset forfeiture is a brutal legal instrument. They don't just take the money, they take the lifestyle. They strip the ego. The neighbors watched from behind their curtains. The king of Wall Street was being evicted. Sterling Corp filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy that afternoon. The board panicked. They fired Marcus instantly to save themselves. Termination for cause, they cited. He left the building with nothing but a cardboard box, just like I did. Paparazzi flashed their cameras, but this time he wasn't smiling. The Department of Justice doesn't do settlements for $40 million frauds. They do indictments. Because the tax fraud exceeded $2 million, the IRS Whistleblower program kicked in. The law grants an award of up to 30% of the collected proceeds. That's $4.2 million, a finder's fee for finding the truth. Marcus is currently serving 8 years for wire fraud at MDC Brooklyn. I heard he works in the prison laundry, making 12 cents an hour. It will take him 4,000 years to earn back what he stole from me. As for me, I didn't retire. Retiring is boring. Yes, I used the reward money to start my own firm, Phoenix Financial Consulting. We specialize in one niche, forensic audits for divorced women. I help women who are being gaslit by powerful men find the hidden assets. Every week I see a new Marcus, and every week I take them down. Some call it vengeance. I call it market correction. Revenge isn't about anger. Anger burns you out. Revenge is about leverage. It's about using the system better than they do. And the best revenge is a positive return on investment. If you suspect financial infidelity, don't scream. Document. Don't get sad. Get audited. I'm Elena, and this was my balance sheet. Subscribe for more stories from the dark side of finance.